In this video, I'm going to show you how to lengthen the penis using science. It's going to be a comprehensive video, so let's get started. Alright, so first let's review the different methods that you can use to lengthen the penis. So we'll start off with the simplest one, which is when you don't need a device, and it's called manual traction. Essentially, this is where you grab your penis and you pull it, right? Like you can grab the head and you pull it. You can pull it between your butt cheeks or up, straight out or to different sides. I personally recommend against manual traction because it's dangerous, mainly because you don't know how much force you're using, which can cause tears in your penis and cause fibrosis and scar tissue. Additionally, it's also very tiring. And so I just deem it to be very ineffective and dangerous. But that is something that, a lot of guys kind of promote and say. There's one guy on YouTube who says that he cured his peyronies using manual traction. I think that's crazy. Like, well, how could you possibly like do so many hours of traction with just your hand? And also in the various forums, you see a lot of guys just injure themselves using this technique. So yeah, and there's no studies around manual traction that I know of. So yeah, that's kind of like the most basic technique and something that I just generally do not recommend. So next we're going to talk about traction using a device, and we're going to start off with devices that use a clamping or constriction method. Essentially, these are devices that hold on to the head of the penis by squeezing it, whether with a strap or with like a clamping device. And so you constrict blood flow to the head of the penis, and you clamp it, and then it pulls your penis. There's a ton of these. One of them are like the popular ones are like the Jess Extender or like the Size Genetics. The main problem with these is that because it constricts blood flow, and you can only use it for about 30 minutes maximum per session, and you have to take breaks. So yeah, these are I wouldn't recommend these in general because of the fact that they constrict your blood. So that's the very first method. Another type of device that's very popular is the RestoreX. Now, the RestoreX was initially developed for the treatment of peyronies, and it uses the clamping method, but additionally it has an angling. So I actually own a RestoreX, and here it is. Okay, so this is what the RestoreX device looks like. Now, this one's been through some shit. I've used this I've owned it for over 2 years. It has, I believe, a 6-month or 1-year warranty. I've had some issues with it, like the springs broke. Yeah, like this little thing here broke as well. And but anyways, the way that it basically works is you unlock this and you clamp this onto the head of your penis. You lock it. You have to also put like a wrap gauge, like gauze, however you say it, on the head of the penis, and then you start extracting it here. You engage the springs, and you're supposed to be within this little white line. You see this white line? That's sort of your target tension, and so it's very safe in as much as how much traction you're applying, how much tension you're applying. The main problem is the head, that it gets constricted here. It can be very uncomfortable. But the cool thing about this device is that you can actually angle it, right? So you can angle it like this, and so you can basically cure or treat the angles of the penis if you have, in the case of peyronies. And you can, of course, if you say you have angles that go like to the sides, you can also change this rods and change it to this different little holes here, so to provide two different treatment angles essentially. So yeah, so this is the RestoreX device. This costs about $530 or so, and this was actually my very first device that I started. Again, because I had I was diagnosed with peyronies, and it's a very good device, especially for treating the curvature. Now, one thing that I've noticed when people post results from this is that when you do that angled traction, sure, it strains the penis, but I've seen also that it indents the other side of the penis, so it creates little indentations on the opposite side. And so they don't really talk about this too much, but that's kind of been, I've also seen this in my own experience. So I generally just avoid angle traction and prefer just straight out traction. Now I'm gonna have a separate video on this, but my theory is that when you apply traction, right, just by default, like just when you apply straight out traction, the tension or the most of the force of the traction is gonna go to the most constricting part, which is the scar tissue. So I'm not a big advocate in doing angled traction because of these two reasons, right? Because of the indentation, they can cause indentation on the opposite side, and I personally just prefer straight out traction. But I've done it before, and then it caused like very minimal indentation, not noticeable at all, and it did completely, well, I wouldn't say completely, but it did help my resolve my curvature. So I had a dorsal curvature, meaning that it was going up and to the side at first. So when I bought this, it really helped resolve that. I used this for maybe, I want to say about 3 months or so. And so I would wear it 3 times a day, about 30 minutes each session. And I was very diligent on it. I would wear it like at least 3 times a day, if not more, because I was very diligent because I wanted to fix my dick essentially. So yeah, that's the RestoreX device. So out of all the clamping devices that I've seen, it's really like the only clamping traction device that I would even consider recommending, just because it's medically backed. There are studies on it. So there's actually a study on the RestoreX device. So let's bring this up. Okay, so here we see the findings, the clinical results. So there's an actual study, but here they do a good job sort of summarizing on their website. So using it for 3 months, which I used it for 3 months at least, 94% of men regain lost length with an average of 1.6 centimeters, or 11% of their penis size was regained. Now, keyword here is regained. So 70% of men experience a reduction of curvature, right? It also increased erectile function, which is very interesting. 89% prefer RestoreX to their traction device. Now, these were in comparison to other constriction-based traction devices, so take that with a grain of salt. I don't prefer it to other traction devices. I think the angling is very noble, but it's not. It's also something that you can kind of mimic with the other type of devices, which I'll talk about right now. And so yeah, there's also a 6 month results. So we can see here, yeah, the sexual function improved. Yeah, so here we see the penile length. So essentially, the more you use it, the better, right? Just like anything. So here, we see like the average at the start was 14.8 centimeters. In 3 months, it increased to 15.9 centimeters, and then in 6 months, it was to 16.8 centimeters. So that's 2 centimeters in 6 months. And granted, they stopped at 6 months, so I would bet that if you kept this going, it would keep going. It would increase. Now the RestoreX has a maximum tension that you can go to, so you can have like the longer rods, and there's a limit into how much tension. I believe the limit is, I want to say 6 pounds or so of traction. So at some point you're going to max out your results essentially, but it provides, I think it's a pretty decent starting device. And as you can see here in the studies, people actually gain like 2 centimeters for using it for 6 months, and only using it for about 90 minutes a day. So that's the RestoreX. That's a RestoreX device. Oh, okay, so next we're gonna talk about sort of the next generation of traction devices, and that's using something called a vacuum cup traction. So essentially, this is where you use a vacuum cup and you attach it to the head of the penis. and then you use rods just like in the other devices to add that tension using either springs or some basically springs and some other mechanisms. The most popular, the gold standard, is the Penimaster Pro. So the Penimaster Pro is basically there's studies on it, so we can look at the Penimaster Pro studies. Okay, so here we see the study on the Penimaster Pro. So essentially 93 patients with Peyronie's disease without erectile dysfunction were treated, and only for a 12-week period, so only for 3 months. Yeah, they were assigned the Penimaster Pro, and they were asked to use it for 3 to 8 hours a day. And then their penis were measured by injecting a Prostadil, PGE1, and then measuring their penis. So you can measure the penis using the stretch method. So you just stretch it while it's flaccid, or you can measure it while it's erect. And the way they do it in these studies is they inject it with a Prostadil to make sure that the men get an erection. So the results were basically there was a reduction in curvature of 31 degrees, very significant at 12 weeks, which is a 41.1% improvement. And it significantly correlated with the number of daily hours the device was applied. So the more hours, the better. And keep in mind, the Penimaster Pro is just straight up traction, just straight out, not like the RestoreX. It doesn't do. So for me, I would recommend this over the RestoreX, because I think like most people, their degrees of their peyronies is less than 30 degrees. So if you have a less than 30 degree angling in the penis, you can just use this and it will essentially resolve it without the risk of creating indentations on the opposite side. And you know, and you do have to wear it longer than the RestoreX device. Now the reasoning that I've heard from the inventors of the RestoreX device is why it was more effective in as much as that you wear it less and you achieve similar results, is because as you have the device on and the tissues and the penis sort of start stretching and becoming a little bit less tight, you can increase the tension, right? Like you can kind of, as you have it on, increase the tension, which is apparently not something easy to do with the Penimaster Pro. Now, I don't own a Penimaster Pro, and I would still recommend it. It is the gold standard. When I first started, you know, I just didn't have that much money, so I couldn't afford the Penimaster Pro. So I got a different device, which I'll talk about it in a second. But that's sort of the reasoning, is because you can dynamically apply more tension when you're wearing the device as from, you know, the RestoreX versus the Penimaster Pro. Okay, so the stretched penile length, or the penile length, basically increased significantly. So ranging from 0.5 to up to 3 centimeters, right? That's close to 2 inches, and it was basically correlated to how long you're wearing this device. So the longer that you're wearing it, the more gains that you have, right? So yeah, so this is a scientific study basically proven that penile traction works to increase the penis size. Okay, so next I want to talk about the device that I actually ended up getting instead of the Penimaster Pro. It was cheaper, significantly cheaper, I believe about half the price. And it had a lot more accessories with it, which is the Totalman rod extender. So I got the Totalman extender kit, which includes the rod extender, the clamp, which I'll review in in a little bit. It had a clamp so that you can clamp your penis. Also, it has a strap, and yeah. So this is basically this device here. So so this is the Totalman rod extender. Now I have the old model. I know that Mike came out with a new model, but this is really good quality. Like, I've owned this for about 2 years. I've used it for many hours, and it is rock solid. Like, there's really nothing I can, like, the quality is just top notch. It's not like some cheap I don't know what he gets it made, but he makes sure that it's very good quality. And the way that this works is essentially you get these the silicone sleeve here, right? And you can tell I used this one. You put the silicone sleeve on this cup, on this basic cup, and you put this on. And you know, and I'm gonna put out a video on how do you actually use this. But then you put this here, and you create a little suction that basically creates the vacuum, and that seals in the glands of the penis. And then from there, you basically put your dick through this here. You put it on, and then you attach it here to this end, and you create the tension. Now, what I really like about this is that just like the RestoreX devices, you can increase the tension here, right? So when you have it on, you can dynamically increase the tension just like the RestoreX device. So it's both effective and it's safer because it's not cutting off circulation. Like with this, it's actually increasing blood supply to the head of the penis. And you know, bonus, like this actually makes the head of your penis bigger because you wear it longer. And yeah, so like it makes it basically kind of expands it. Now you don't want to wear something that doesn't fit you. You want to wear something that fits you because you want to create a good snug fit, and because you want to avoid blistering, right? The downside is that you cannot measure the tension, like how much tension you're applying. You can buy like a little device to measure it, but you know, I just kind of go by feel. So you know, you can add in as little tension or as much tension. Like you can create a lot of tension with this, which is why I really like this device. Because you know, I kind of reached the limits of the RestoreX device in as much as the tension, how much tension I could apply. And you know, and also it's just, this is way more comfortable. I can wear this for, I used to wear this for like 6-8 hours a day. I did that for about a little bit over a year. And so yeah, I highly recommend this device. But yeah, I would recommend anything that uses a vacuum based system over anything that clamps down on your penis. Now, there's no studies for the Totalman, but I think the Penimaster Pro study is analogous to the Totalman rod extender, and so yeah, I would say you're gonna see at least similar results to the Penimaster Pro, if not better in my personal opinion, because you can apply even more tension. And once you build up to it, you got to be real careful. Like you have to build up to it, because the way that the penis works, and you actually don't want to start with high tension, which is why I don't recommend weight hanging, especially for beginners, because you're going to basically strengthen your penis, if that makes sense, right? You don't want to like get your penis used to having that such high amount of tension, because then you have to just put more tension, whereas you want to just kind of get those newbie gains with the low amount of tension, and then go up in tension as your penis sort of adjusts to it. At some point, low tension is just not going to apply that stretch, so you have to go up in tension. Another device that I want to talk about is called the lghanger, and I actually have an lghanger right here. So this is actually a pretty fucking awesome device. So it's just essentially the same as the vacuum, right? But the difference is this is custom made for your dick. So it's sold by a company called lghanger, and you send them your measurements, and they basically make a cup specifically for your dick. So it works the same. The only difference is that you, instead of using like the small little pump, you can use a regular hand pump. So you can use like a regular hand pump, right? This is something that I use for a vacuum erection device, but you do this and you can measure exactly how much vacuum is being created in the penis. It also has like a little hook here, and there's where you either the lghanger, they also sell the rod extender, so you can apply it to a rod extender, or you can actually hang weights off of it, which I'll talk about in the next section. There's also a little drills here, little holes, and you can attach rods. Yeah, so you can attach these rods here, as you can see. So you can attach them, and the purpose of this rods is you can basically twist the penis. I believe they're called bundled stretches. and so you can twist the penis and then apply tension. This is just so that you can stretch out the various the flesh of the penis, essentially, right? And that's a very advanced technique, so you definitely don't want to do that when you're just a beginner. But this is helpful if you have torsion in your penis. In the case of peyronies, where your dick basically twists, you want to be able to untwist it, right, and then apply tension. Now, just something that you can also do with this other one, with the Totalman rod extender. So you can basically, have your penis and then twist it and then hook it in there. You can also do that. One thing I forgot to mention is this is what I did a lot to solve my curve. And again, I'm going to make a dedicated video, but I actually have a Velcro strap and you attach it. You can attach this essentially to the rods here. And so you create this here, and then that creates basically, then you can put your penis on top of it. And that creates like a fulcrum where when you apply tension, it's going to stretch out specifically that part of which is the scar tissue, right? And it doesn't just work for up and down curves. Like, you can also do it if you have a side to side curve. Essentially, you would put in the penis, and you would put the strap, and then you would put the strap, and then you would like basically strap it and pull it to the opposite side. Now, I like this a little bit better because it has less chance of indenting the opposite side. It's just a little bit more of a surface. So there's no sharp, something sharp creating an indentation on the opposite side of your penis. So just kind of a little bit side tangent on using the Totalman or the Totalman rod extender for treating a curve. But yeah, back to the lghanger. Yeah, so you can do this. It has dedicated rods, and the good part is that the lghanger is you can really go up in weight. So you can go here like with this, you can go up in weight, but the problem is that this vacuum is going to lose the pressure. It's going to lose the vacuum, and if you do too much, it's going to create blisters in your penis, in the glands of the penis. With this, you have a more advanced taping technique, so it does take even longer. Like this one disadvantage of this and the Penimaster Pro is that with this one you have to tape up the glands of your penis. Mike has a great tutorial on how you tape up, and whereas the Penimaster Pro, you don't have to tape up. You can use a little, so you can also like wear like a little cap, right? So this one's been sitting there. But you can apply this cap and kind of avoid the taping. I like the taping. It really doesn't take me that long to tape up. Maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes to tape up, and I'm good to go. So it's kind of like a disadvantage. But with the lghanger, right, it takes even longer to tape up. Like it's kind of a really like a very involved process. It's more taping, takes more time. But you can go higher in the weight and the tension. So that's the lghanger. Now, in addition to that, there's also something called an all-day stretcher, or an ADS. So essentially, instead of using the rods, you still use the vacuum-based cup, and you attach it to a strap. So here's like a strap that I got with my Totalman, and you put the strap on in your leg. Put it on your leg, and then you basically connect this to the device here, right? And you can wear this. The Penimaster Pro has something similar, and the Phylocene Forte as well. Yeah, you can basically wear it for while you sleep, or are doing chores or something like that. Now, it's definitely not something new people should do. You definitely got to know how to sleep and be very cognizant of that, be very careful of that. But yeah, it's something that you can do. Another cool thing about using a vacuum-based system is that you can use like a pulley. So this is like the pulley system. I actually got this with my Totalman kit. So it's cheaper than the Penimaster Pro, and it gives you all this stuff. But essentially, I have a standing desk, like it goes up and down, and I have like a hook. I installed the hook under it, and you basically clamp this onto the hook right here, and you attach one side to the right, to the back, to the vacuum head here. And the other one you can attach to weights. So the Totalman system comes with like a thing that you can put weights on. I use like a little bucket I just bought at Home Depot, right? So you can use something like this. So this you can use basically for hanging weights. This is only 2.5 pounds. I have this other smaller ones. These are like 2 pounds. I have some other ones that are like 1 pound. Okay, so that brings us to our next topic, which is compression weight hanging. So there are limits with how much tension you can apply with the vacuum-based system, except for the lghanger. With the lghanger, you can actually hang more weight. So I would recommend that if you are going like maybe like 10 pounds or more, or 7 pounds or more, up to like I believe 20 pounds, I would rather use the lghanger for that. But there's another method which is called compression weight hanging. So compression weight hanging, so this is the Totalman clamp here. So there's another one called like the bib hanger, which is also something very popular. Now bib was somebody that back in the days in the forums claimed to he grew his dick by like 4 inches, which is crazy. But yeah, so yeah, I think he kind of popularized the compression weight hanging. So the way that this works is essentially you open up these screws here, and you put your penis in here. You have to wrap up the penis. So you Mike has a tutorial on how to do this. It's a process, right? You have to put in like a penis sleeve, and then you have to wrap it up, and then you put this device on, you clamp it, and then you tighten it right here. So you put this in the middle of your penis, in the shaft of your penis, and then you can hang weights from here, right? And you can go very high off of this. There's people that go up to like 20 pounds, if not more. One thing is that based on the testimonials is that it works, right? I'm not gonna knock it and say that it doesn't work. At least from the testimonials, there's no studies on it. So if you do decide to use it, you're going based off like testimonials, not science. But from what I've gathered, it does work. I've done it before. I've only gone up to maybe like 12 pounds tops. And 2 things that I don't like about it is that it constricts blood in the process of doing it. So it just takes a long time to like wrap up and do it. You can only do it for so long, and yeah, to me, just anything that restricts the blood is kind of like I don't like it. And also I feel like if the more weights you go on with this and you have something clamped on, right, like you're more in danger of tearing something, at least in my personal opinion. Additionally, when you're putting this, right, you're only really applying tension to the part that this is clamped on, or like below the part that it clamps on. So the top of the penis and like the dorsal part of it, it doesn't really get any tension. So in my case, my scar tissue was like more here on the top, closer to the glands. So it's just not something that's going to be directly treating, right, the scar tissue. So which is why I basically abandoned it. Kind of a bit of also an issue with the lghanger as well is that you need to roll down. You put a sleeve here and you roll it down. It goes down a little bit further into the shaft. But again, my scar tissue is a little bit closer to the glands, so that's why I prefer, right, something like the Totalman, which is kind of like a shorter part, like a shorter sleeve here. And I could probably make this even shorter, but it really helps apply a little bit more tension to the scar tissue. So that's weight hanging using a clamping device. Okay, next I want to talk about, for the sake of completeness, pumping. So you can use a vacuum pump. And based on some of the studies and anecdotal evidence and things like, the Bathmate product promotion or product documentation, you will gain very marginal amounts of length using pumping. I would say negligible. Like, it's just not something that it's even worth it. If you're doing it for length, I would never do pumping. Pumping is more of a girth. It's to help with girth, not with length. So yeah, I definitely would not ever recommend pumping for length.
Now, one of the things that guys do is to pump for length is they use like a smaller cylinder so that more of the vacuum and tension is applied kind of outwards. But again, you get just better results, more effective with a traction device. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend pumping for length. Is just very ineffective. Okay, so next I want to talk about DHT gel. So DHT is basically the male hormone. So it's something that your body transforms testosterone through 5-alpha reductase to DHT. And DHT is very important, particularly when there's a boy fetus. It's in the womb. It basically is in charge of forming the penis and making sure that the penis is in a normal size. If the mother does not have proper testosterone or DHT in the system, a boy can actually come up with a micro penis. DHT is also very important during the puberty, and so and which is why it's important if you're a guy not to be fat or obese or overweight during puberty, because you can end up basically producing too much estrogen, and that's why you get like male boobs, or you can actually end up with a smaller dick than you would have otherwise. But anyways, DHT gel, essentially, if you're not done with puberty, or even if you're in the ending stages of puberty, you can apply it directly into your penis, and it'll basically cause your penis to grow. Now, there's a few studies on this, so let's take a look. Okay, so the first study basically is in the topical application of DHT to treat the micro penis in prepubescent and post-pubescent boys and men. So essentially what happened here is when it was applied before puberty or in the early stages of puberty, there was a change from 2.5 to 3.5 centimeters. So it's pre, during puberty, and even up to 5.7 centimeters. So very, very, very effective. Now, granted, this is coupled with puberty, but in these cases, these boys basically had a issue in which their body was not able to properly convert testosterone to DHT. So the doctors applied the DHT gel directly to the penis. Unfortunately, now they didn't post results for post-puberty. A lot of the forums and anecdotal evidence says that it does not, and I agree it should not work once you're done with puberty. And there was apparently no adverse effects on this in the study with I believe it was with 4 boys. But of course, the doctors monitored their androgens and their hormones very closely to make sure that there were no adverse effects. So DHT also plays a role in hair loss. So one potential issue that you could cause is potentially kickstart puberty, or kickstart male pattern baldness, or kick it up if you're prone to male pattern baldness. I've also read another study. I don't have it on hand, but that something similar was achieved using testosterone. So yeah, I mean, I think if it's something that you want to experiment with, I don't know if I would experiment this myself or with my boy, my son. But I would certainly tell him about it and maybe at that point give him a choice. But yeah, obviously if it were legal, but it's not legal. But hey, it's your life and you can do whatever you want. But to your own body. But essentially, yeah, you can apply DHT gel while you're in puberty or during puberty or early stages of puberty, and it will grow your dick. Hey, if you like this video, please make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to help support this channel. Now let's keep going. Okay, next we're going to talk about surgery. So, yes, this is going to be a big one. So, there's different kinds of surgeries for the lengthening of the penis. So first we'll start with the most basic one, which is cutting the ligament, the suspension ligament of the penis. And there's actually studies on this, so let's take a quick look. Okay, so here we see. So mainly cutting the suspension ligament increases like about 3.5 centimeters flaccid. Okay, this is flaccid, and only 1.8, give or take 1.4. So it's basically the range is 1.4 to 3.2. 3.2 is pretty good, right? But it's something that we similarly saw with the traction device as well, erect. So, you know, personally, I would never get any sort of surgery like this, but it does somewhat work. And you know, I've read a lot about this surgery, and especially in the forums and stuff. One thing that you're gonna want to do if you do get this surgery is you want to apply traction right afterwards, after you get it cut, because otherwise it's just gonna form scar tissue and it's going to contract, and you may even end up losing length. So something you want to make sure, just like getting peyronies, except it's in the ligament, you want to make sure that it's healed in an expanded, elongated state. So you still, at the end of the day, you still have to do traction. Like, granted, it's probably not going to be a whole lot of traction, not for very long, but it's, yeah, I mean, you're basically, and also you're gonna lose the angling of your penis. Now, granted, I think my penis, when erect, now hangs a little bit lower, not too low. After all this traction, nothing bothersome or anything like that. Very, very slight. But with the ligament cut is basically just it's not no longer gonna hang like this. It's gonna be more like this. So yeah, I mean, I just something I would rather just do traction. At the end of the day, just for longer, than get this cut. It does make it seem longer flaccid, but who gives a fuck when it's flaccid? Like, I'm not trying to impress some guys in the gym. Like, I'm trying to impress a girl I'm about to bang, right? So yeah, that's the ligament cut, and just something I wouldn't recommend. Next, we're gonna look at a surgery called the sliding technique in grafting. So this is another surgery that's also popular in the peyronies. I wouldn't say popular. Popular is like a strong word, but it's another option. And there's some studies on this, so let's take a look how this works. Okay, so this is essentially how it works. They essentially have to deglove your penis. There's a non-degloving approach as well, which is a little bit more recent. But in the old days, they would deglove your penis, meaning they would take the skin all the way down. They separate the urethra, which is here on the bottom, and the veins here, and the dorsal nerve, which is the top here, the neurovascular bundle. Very important. This is what supplies sensation to the penis. Make some cuts here, and then they basically elongate the penis here, and then they put graft, which is tissue, fake tissue. Could be cadaver tissue, to fill in these gaps. And there's different techniques. There's different cutting techniques that are a little bit more advanced nowadays. Yeah, so here we see another point of view. This is, I believe, is there's a way of doing this where it's non-degloving, because one of the problems with the gloving approach is that you're essentially cutting off circulation to the head, even though it's temporary. And you can get what's called gland necrosis. That was one of the complications here that happened a lot, which is why they developed the non-degloving technique. And what gland necrosis is, something horrible. So you can look pictures of this up. But essentially, it's when the tissue in the glands of your penis dies, and they have to cut it off. Right? It's horrible. So yeah, this is something that only in the most extreme of cases would you do. Personally, I would probably do hell of a lot of traction, weight hanging way before I do any of this stuff. I would never do this. I mean, the case would have to be absolutely bad for me to even consider do something like this. So let's look at the results though. The mean penile length gain was 3.1 centimeters. And basically everyone had their curvature straightened. So pretty significant. But this is something that you want to risk losing your penis to gain 3.1 centimeters. I mean, it depends. In the study here, the people had actually lost about 3.2 centimeters, like, you know, ranging from 1 to 5 centimeters due to the peyronies. So, yeah, it's just something that I think you need to consider either case. Next, I want to mention the Penuma technique. So this is something that I think even Joe Rogan has talked about. Now this is essentially when they cut up in your dick, and they insert this little sort of like a sleeve, if you will, around your dick. They sew it close to the glands of the penis, and there's different sizes, right? Like I would guess most people want to get the extra large. Now, the problem with this is that it does not increase length at all. Like, why would it? Like, this is just, they take your current length, they put it in so it'll increase girth. And why would you get this when you can just pump? Like, if you're gonna satisfy, like trying to impress a girl, just pump before, right? Like, I don't get it. Or you can also get you know, HA filler or something like that if you really want it to be more spontaneous. The problem is that they have to basically cut open the skin of the penis and put this in, and it looks very unnatural. So if you look at the pictures, to me it just looks very unnatural. And additionally, it actually creates a lot of, right, because you're cutting things, right, it creates a lot of scarring. And so potentially your penis, when you're cutting into it, it's going to go into what we call turtling, right? As it heals, it's basically just reacting to the trauma. It's going to react, it's going to shrink up, and it's going to essentially heal up and create scar tissue, and you're going to end up with a shorter penis, right? So this actually has the potential to shorten your penis, and there's a lot of horror stories. There's actually studies about this. Yeah, so there's a study about this proving that it is safe. No one's saying that it's not safe. It increased the girth of the penis from you know, from about 8.5 centimeters to 13.4 centimeters. Fucking a crazy amount of girth that you would get. I mean, truthfully, even with a pump, you're not gonna get that. Right, and so, you know, 81% of subjects high or very high. So basically, there's a 20% chance of dissatisfaction. I wouldn't say this is very high. Like a penile implant has like a 98% satisfaction rate. This is only 81%. Right, some of the problems were scar formation, infection. So you can straight up get an infection, which is actually even higher with penile implants. And notice how they didn't even measure the length. So, you know, how convenient, right? Like they just measured the girth here. So yeah, with Penuma, I would stay as far away from this as possible. Do not even consider it. You know, there's different ways that you can increase the girth, and you don't want to risk having an even smaller dick just because of this. Then of course you can also, you know, just for the sake of completeness, I'm going to mention injections using hyaluronic acid filler. So yeah, you can inject this, but that's only going to improve the way of your flaccid look. It does not increase your length at all. It will increase your girth. So notice girth here. I'm gonna make a dedicated video on girth, but it is definitely not intended for length at all. Lastly, I just want to mention pills. So there's a lot of pills that you may see like ads on like Pornhub and stuff, like, oh, increase your dick size with a pill. How? Like that doesn't fucking work, right? Like the best you can do is like do something with like Cialis, and what that's gonna do is just keep your penis a little bit like fluffier throughout the day. So if you're something like insecure about your flaccid length, and you know you want to, that you go to a nudist beach. If you go to a nudist beach, what I would do is I would pump and take a Cialis and like, you know, fucking show off or whatever. And yeah, that's what I would, if you're really like insecure about that. But like in general, like pills are not going to do anything. The best they can do is just increase the blood flow to your member, to your penis, and such that you seems that you have a longer flaccid. But of course, when that's definitely not permanent. Like once you stop taking the pills, it'll go away. But you know, so that's kind of the only thing about pills is they're not effective for gaining length on your penis. Okay, as always, I want to mention safety. So number one is blood constriction. As I mentioned before, I much highly recommend using like a vacuum type system that does not constrict blood, because you know if you cut off blood or if you compress your veins, you're basically, you know, you're asking for trouble. If you're putting pressure on the actual veins themselves, you can cause issues with your erection. And of course you can also tear something, which may lead to peyronies. These are the problems with doing things like traction by hand. If you pull too hard, you can essentially create scar tissue and cuts inside of your penis, which will lead to peyronies, which will, you know, make your penis short. And so you definitely don't want that. And if you do have peyronies, all the techniques that I mentioned are ways to treat your peyronies, and it's kind of where I got started. Another thing that you see once in a while is the concept of soft glands. So some guys claim that, you know, after doing PE or penis enlargement or whatever, their glands no longer inflate. So now I have a hard time believing this. Maybe with a compression device, I can see why this is happening. But the blood that goes to the glands is supplied from your basically from your urethra. From there, there's blood vessels that go up to the glands. So as long as you're not messing with your urethra, I don't see how like you can get soft glands. If you do get soft glands, there's a big problem that, you know, some guys are really traumatic. You know, I would say like you can treat it, quote unquote treat it. Number one is try to, you know, you can use prostatic injections to increase blood flow to that area. You can also use suppository, so you basically drop the prostatic into the urethra, and then you dissolve it into the urethra, and then that this is what guys with penile implants do, because you know, they have issues with blood flow, and a penile implant does not go all the way to the glands, so the glands stay soft. And if their glands stay soft, they can use this suppository to put into the urethra, and that inflates the glands. Worst case scenario, you can always inject filler into the glands. So my doctor is called Dr. Francois Eid. He's like world famous with implants and all this stuff. You know, he offers that, and you can see the results on his website. And yeah, you can basically plump up the glands for that. Also, as I mentioned, you know, devices like this, you could always put that on, and it actually inflates your glands. It's temporary, but it's also something you could do. Now, one thing that my doctor again mentioned to me when I told him I was using RestoreX is that you want to be careful. Now, I don't know how much I believe him. He's a world famous. He's seen more dicks than a fucking Asian hooker, right? Like, he knows his dicks, and what he says is that you think of a penis as a bicycle tire, and there's the outer layer, and then there's the inner layer. So when you're stretching it, you're stretching the outer layer, but not the inner layer, right? And so the inner layer, you basically is what the inner layer is smooth muscle, and when the smooth muscle relaxes, it essentially expands, right? It's like when a tire, when you're putting air, it expands. And when it expands, it constricts blood, and it holds blood in the penis, and that's how you get an erection. But if you're overdoing PE, at least according to him, you're expanding the outer tube too much, whereas the smooth muscle is not able to expand to the size where it's able to hold blood, and you can get erectile dysfunction if you're overdoing it. Now, I don't know how much I believe that. I mean, you know, he's a world famous surgeon, world class surgeon, and you know, so I think there's something to it. But I've never experienced like that. Like, PE actually helped personally my erections, but you know, peyronies gave me some ED for sure. And I mean, also I inject, so from my, you know, you're basically working out that muscle, and like you're leaving it expand. It's like working out, so the smooth muscle can grow bigger. And also why I supplement, and I would say supplement with something like a VED to make sure that your inner tube, your smooth muscle, is always able to expand to the size required for your outer layer. So yeah, this is something that Dr. Francois told me himself. To something I wanted to mention. I don't know how much truth it is, but it came directly from a doctor. Okay, so next I just have a bunch of like miscellaneous things I wanna mention before we close out this video. But you know, all these PE, especially when you use something like the vacuum ones, are going to expand your foreskin if you have one. I'm Hispanic, so I'm not circumcised. And so doing things like pumping basically creates edema in the foreskin, and it actually makes it a little longer. Not something that bothers me a lot. Like when I get an erection, it goes back down, and like no one has ever noticed I have a little bit longer foreskin than most. Of course, you can always get it cut, get it trimmed up if it really bothers you. If you had a circumcision, you can actually restore your foreskin. So there's a device called the VLC tugger, and it's just like a little cone that you can put on your head, and you can also combine it with something like the Penimaster Pro or the Totalman rod extender, and it basically can restore your foreskin if that's something that you want to do. Naturally, your foreskin is just going to start getting restored if you use these devices. Okay, another thing that I want to mention is, how do you measure your penis? So it's something like a lot of guys, I guess you don't know, but there's a medical way that you measure the penis. So all the studies out there, not all, but like the non-self-reported ones that for penis size, the ones that are that were taken by doctors, the ones that were measured by a doctor or a physician or a clinical person, they all have a standard way of measuring the penis. And there's two ways of measuring. Basically, it's called bone press stretched length and bone pressed erect length. And according to studies and according to medical literature, your bone press flaccid length, your bone press stretched flaccid length is going to equal your bone pressed erect length pretty much all the time, always. But the way that you want to measure it is essentially you take a hard ruler like this. You take a hard ruler and you stand up. You can stand up. You're sitting down with that, like maybe like a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's significant. You stand up and you go on the top of the penis. Do not go to the sides. That's cheating. That's going to add to it. And so if you're comparing yourself to the studies, you have to measure it on the top of the top. So you take this and then you press it until it hits your pubic bone, That's why it's called bone pressed. You take that, you stress your penis, or if you have an erection, and then the tip of your penis is basically where it ends, and that's how you measure it, right? You do not measure it from the side. You don't measure it from underneath. You don't measure it all the way from your butthole. That's how you measure a penis. Another thing I want to mention is there's a lot of guys, especially older guys, that don't take medications like finasteride, that get something called prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is essentially caused by the DHT, the hormone DHT, which also causes hair loss. And now you don't have to be bald to get it, like, because baldness is a gene, basically how sensitive your hairs are to the DHT. But essentially the prostate enlarges, and if it's bad enough, they have to take it out. It's called a radical prostatectomy. And one of the side effects of this is you can get erectile dysfunction and shortening of the penis. Like, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're going to get shortening of the penis. And your erectile function may or may not be pristine. And this is because when they go in there and cut it, they touch a lot of the nerves that have to do with getting an erection. And so even with a robotic one, it still causes ED. It can still cause ED. And it just depends on how well your nerves heal up that you're going to get your erections back or not. And nerves take a long time, like six months to a year to heal up. So one thing I would say, if you get that or know someone, is you should be doing traction, or at the very least using a VED before and after the procedure. Number one, it helps with your erectile function. Number two, it preserves your length, because if you're not getting erections, this is one of the problems with like finasteride, right, or like any other medication, SSRIs, for example, that messes with your erections, is that your penis starts going into atrophy. And we see this in some of the studies for like finasteride. Is your blood, the blood basically it doesn't go. You're not getting nighttime erections. You're not getting morning erections, and basically the lack of blood causes atrophy in the penis. So because it's shrunken up, it starts to decrease in size. And there's something that could happen if your libido is hurt from medications like SSRIs or finasteride. So what you want to do is, of course, use a VED if you're not getting erections as good as you were before. Also, if you're getting older, you should be using a VED. So if you're taking medications like finasteride or SSRIs or whatever, and you notice your erection quality going down, you should absolutely be using a vacuum pump to make sure that you're getting blood flow and to prevent shrinkage. I would couple it with some light traction as well, just at least here and there, make sure you're not getting shrinkage. Okay, and just very lastly, you want to touch on penile implants, just very briefly. Again, like if if your ED is really bad and you're considering getting an implant, you should absolutely be doing these exercises. You should be absolutely be doing traction. There's actually studies. So let's take a look at the study really fast. Okay, so essentially, they have a study here, for example. Traction therapy for men with shortened penis prior to penile prosthesis. So shortened either by peyronies or because of atrophy due to lack of nighttime and morning erections. So the patients were essentially asked to ask the penile traction device 2 to 4 hours daily for 2 to 4 months. And this is before they were implanted with an implant. Now, what was the conclusion? It basically resulted in a complete reservation of penile length. And actually a small gain was noted in 70% of the subjects. So you actually gain penile length. So one of the big issues with getting an implant is, number one, the doctor matters. Number two, technique matters. There's two techniques. Basically, you can do one where they do it through the top. It's an infrapubic approach. Basically, they cut on the top. And then the other one is through the ball sack, a scrotal approach. And it's been proven through the studies that the scrotal approach actually yields better results in the length, because they can put in longer cylinders. They can easily take, they put something in. If it's too small, they can replace it. The doctor absolutely matters and how aggressive they want to be. So my doctor, again, Francois, he tends, at least from what I've seen, he tends to measure just right. There's other ones like Dr. Hackey. There's also some real good ones, but there's also some really bad ones, right? They're not going to be aggressive. They're rather err on the side of cautious, or they're just not experienced. You want to go to a high volume doctor. I would absolutely pay, I would rather pay and travel to go to a high volume doctor than come up with a significantly shorter dick. And additionally, you can also do traction to make sure to optimize the outcomes of such a procedure. So lastly, I want to touch on my routine and my results. So yes, I have documented my results, and I may post them somewhere, maybe OnlyFans or something like that. But you can see in the studies, you don't have to believe me. There's scientific studies that say that you can gain up to around 3 centimeters with traction, not even surgery. My person, and the more hours that you do it, the better. So my routine is, I started with the RestoreX. I did that for about 3 to 5 months, if I recall correctly. Then I supplemented with the Totalman rod extender. So I would use the RestoreX for 90 minutes a day, and then in between I will use the Totalman rod extender, and then I switched to just the pure Totalman rod extender for about 6 to 8 hours. I did that in total for about about a year and 3 months. And my results were, I gained, so my case is a little bit unique because with peyronies I ended up losing half an inch at first, which is why I panicked, and then I started doing all this. I regained that half an inch, and then I gained an additional inch on top of that. So all in all, it was like a gain of from peyronies stricken of 1.5 inches, or you would say it's an inch, if going back to my baseline. So it absolutely resolved the curve. The curve is basically not there anymore. There's barely a very, very slight curve. And it's great because it's actually the good curve, because it allows me to hit the girl's A spot, that's really deep and kind of up, and so girls really love it. So it's kind of I really don't even want to resolve that curve. Nowadays, because I'm very happy with my results, I may go up. I always wanted to gain maybe another inch or so, but I think that at this point I'm very happy. So I just have a maintenance routine in which I do traction about 2 to 4 hours a week, and I use my VED almost every day or every other day that I have a date. Also, because I do take finasteride for the hair. I make sure that I use it my VED consistently to make sure there's no atrophy. Helps my erections, and yeah, of course the girth gains as well. So I also inject alprostadil almost all the time when I have like dates, or you know, when I'm hanging out with my girlfriend. Not all the time, like only on special occasions, like when I do have a girlfriend. Because Cialis still works. I take Cialis. I take 10 milligrams every day, and that's approved by my doctor. Yeah, that's basically my routine now. Oh, okay. So that was a pretty comprehensive look at the scientific ways that you can lengthen your dick. So don't believe people like Johnny Sins. Don't believe people like, oh, that doesn't work. There's a lot of haters out there that always just want, oh, well, prove it. Okay, but like, I don't have to. I will, but like, just believe the studies. Like, I don't have to fucking, right? Like, there's science. This is not something that's like disputed at this point. This is something that's well proven. So yeah, just, you know, like everyone says, believe the science, right? Like, you can believe the science. And so yeah, I outlined like all the different methods. Next, going to make videos on how to make it thicker, so because that's a whole nother topic on its own. So stay tuned, and please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe right now. Go do it right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.